Hello, Scrufftards. Welcome to the War Zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And with all the talk of Russian advances of late down in Ukraine, I figured why not take a look at it? And, well, let's call it what it is. This is not Blitzkrieg. This is, in fact, Schneckenkrieg, Russia's Snail War. And we're going to start off here on the 10th of October 2023, well over a year ago. And as you can see, Russia has not yet taken Avdiivka. In fact, this is the start of the operation to conquer and occupy Avdiivka. And this, of course, led on to Russia moving up to Ocheritina and eventually reaching Rodivka and Novorodivka, and then everything down south follows as Russia moves in towards Kharkov and what have you. So this is the 10th of October when all of this begins. The push towards Avdiivka that then results in the push to Ocheritina and eventually the push towards Kharkov and Velika Novosilka. So it has taken Russia roughly a year, 13 months to conquer and occupy around 2,000 square kilometers from pushing into Avdiivka and then moving on through Ocheritina towards Novorodivka, towards Kharkov, Vuhledar, and eventually Velika Novosilka, right? Roughly 2,000 square kilometers conquered and occupied in 13 months. And I mean, the pro-Russians, the Vatniks, they are super impressed by this. And this is, as we know, the end of Ukraine, this glorious advance these past 13 months. But I mean, if we take a look at what 2,000 square kilometers represents, it's not even the size of Luxembourg. Russia has, for over a year, failed to occupy the entirety of Luxembourg. That's how impressive this advance has been. Russia has, for over a year, essentially tried to invade and occupy Luxembourg and failed. Luxembourg still has some territory left that is in the hands of Luxembourg, and they can still fight on. So, I mean, yeah, this is not an impressive military accomplishment that we're seeing from the Russians, spending 30 months trying to occupy such a small area. And just as comparison, when Germany invaded Belgium, or rather when Germany invaded the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg, they successfully did so in roughly 3 weeks, 20 days. And as they did that, they not only vanquished the armies of the Dutch, the Belgians, and Luxembourg, they also defeated the French and the British army inside of Belgium. All in 20 days, 3 weeks. I mean, yeah. And, well, Russia is struggling with Luxembourg, and they haven't destroyed a single nation's army as of yet in these 13 months, trying to push into the area the size of Luxembourg. And so, I mean, effectiveness, I mean, here you see quote unquote Blitzkrieg. And, well, compared to Schneckenkrieg, Schneckenkrieg is not really as impressive as what we know in pop culture as Blitzkrieg. And I mean, if Russia were to invade Estonia, it would take them 13 months to push into Narva and slightly west and that's not a massive portion of Estonia that they would conquer in 13 months. Again, I mean, I think Russia would prefer Blitzkrieg over Schneckenkrieg, but they're stuck with Schneckenkrieg apparently. Slow and steady. Not sure if that's a viable option when going up against NATO potentially, but I mean, kind of feels as if Russia doesn't really want to mess around with NATO if this is all they have, if this is the best they can achieve in 13 months. And I mean, 2,000 square kilometers, they can't even conquer the entirety of Gotland Island, this super crucial island in the middle of the Baltic Ocean, the Baltic Sea, I mean. And they also have to cross open water to reach the island. They're going to get sunk by submarines and by anti-ship missiles launched by aircraft and what have you. And 13 months to grab 2,000 square kilometers on this island, while not having proper logistics in place. I mean, I don't think the people living on Gotland have to worry about a Russian invasion anytime soon, to be perfectly honest. Now, what are the Russians after? Why is it taking so long? Why didn't they just push straight in for Mirnorad and Pokrovsk? Well, if we take a look at this, this is a Blackbird group, and here they have mapped out some Ukrainian defenses in the area, and as you can see, Russia moved out to Rodivka and Novorodivka, and then they ran into some proper Ukrainian defenses. And pushing through these defenses when you only have a narrow approach like you had from Avdiivka or Cherezina to Rodivka, Novorodivka, it would have made it really easy for the Ukrainians to defend. Russia can only attack here, and they would be surrounded on all sides, and there would be artillery coming in. They only had one supply route, easy to knock out the logistic trucks and what have you, and everything, right? The Russian artillery would be jammed together, easy targets for them all around. So Russia has now established a presence here at Rodivka and Novorodivka, just outside of Mirnorad. And now they are moving, as we can see, along the Ukrainian defenses southward, down into this area. What are they doing? They wanted this logistical route here, so they could rely on more than one route to bring in troops, supplies, ammunition, vehicles, artillery, and what have you. They also want space around the cities so that they can spread out their artillery and get more artillery into range, so they don't bunch up 2,000 artillery pieces here. Now they can spread it out, and it makes it more difficult for Ukraine to target the artillery. And Russia can now concentrate artillery from three flanks, basically, into Mirnorad and Pokrovsk, and assist with fire support in the eventual assault on these two cities. And also Russia is coming down through Kharkov and Velika Novosilka to reach a small town here called Andriivka, I believe. And this is I don't think it is a logistical route at the moment, but up until this point it was one of Ukraine's logistical routes into Pokrovsk. And Russia wants this road for their own purposes, to utilize it as a third logistical route in the area before they launched the assault on Pokrovsk. Also, since Russia is here, Ukraine can't expand on their defenses outside of Mirnorad. They can expand all their defenses here, since this is taking time. It's taken 13 months, remember? But now they can't fortify any more in this area, Pokrovsk right here. They can't expand on these defenses because Russia is right here. They can expand all over the place elsewhere, but not here. This gives, of course, Russia an excellent position to launch an assault into Mirnorad. This is a weak point in the Ukrainian defenses. But like I said, since everything else is taking so long to set up and get into position and occupy these territories, Ukraine can now fortify the rest of the area surrounding Pokrovsk. So Russia will basically be funneled into this choke point, and it is an advantage. It is the weak point where Russia can break in, but Ukraine also knows it, which means they will direct all their artillery at this location. You have these blue lines. They are Ukrainian logistical routes, and as you can see, they have quite a few. Russia will cut this one off and utilize it for their own purposes, and then Russia will try and reach this river up here eventually, and then they are in a good position to strike at these supply routes leading into Pokrovsk. And if we take a look at the Blackbird group's map, you can see that here at Udachne, right here, there's a gap in the Ukrainian defenses according to this map. So if Russia can push in here into this area here, right here, then they can actually come in between Ukrainian defenses, unless Ukraine has fortified like hell now in these couple of months where Russia is pushing out this way instead. And then Russia can move up west of Pokrovsk and reach these logistical routes. I don't think it's going to be that easy. I think this river here will be heavily fortified. Udachne will be heavily fortified, and Russia will reach the river, but will struggle pushing northward to the west of Pokrovsk. But this is why Russia is not launching an all-out assault on Myrnorod and Pokrovsk. They want to set up everything to make sure everything is in place before they launch that assault. Because if they just rush into Myrnorod and Pokrovsk, Ukraine will destroy them. Likewise, Ukraine can lose territory out here. This is not crucial territory to hold as long as they inflict heavy casualties on the Russians as they're falling back. I think what Ukraine is doing a defense at depth at the moment. They know they can't hold every inch of territory to the last man, because if they do, they will lose the war. So they are slowly falling back, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing good Ukrainian offense combined with terrible Russian offense. That is why this has taken 13 months. And Ukraine will slowly fall back because they're overwhelmed by Russian numbers. Not because Russia has brilliant tactics. It's Russian numbers that are forcing Ukraine to slowly fall back. And then Ukraine will reach these defensive lines, and then they can fall back no further, because then Russia can reach the logistical routes and threaten to encircle Pokrovsk. So up at this river is where Ukraine can fall back no further, and if Russia gets past the river, then Ukraine is in trouble. Here, Ukraine can lose territory as a matter of defensive strategy. At this point, Russia will probably try and launch an assault into Myrnorod at this weak point. And this is where Ukraine can defeat the Russian army, when Russia enters Myrnorod and tries to enter Pokrovsk. Because in these cities, Russia needs a 10-to-1 advantage to be able to have any form of success against the Ukrainians. They need to throw in so much resources, so much manpower into these two cities to overcome the Ukrainians. It's going to be ridiculous. They are struggling at Toretsk, they're struggling at Chasiv Yar, at Vovchansk. We know they struggled at Avdiivka, Bakhmut, and those towns were small in comparison to Myrnorod and Pokrovsk. So this is where Ukraine can destroy the Russian army. They just need to weaken the Russians as much as possible as Russia is moving in. And by the time Russia is ready to launch an assault, they are so weak that Ukraine can actually Ukraine actually has the possibility of destroying the Russians in Myrnorod and Pokrovsk. These two cities are fortresses, but also a trap. Ukraine will weaken the Russians out here in the fields, fall back until Russia is ready to launch an assault. Russia will enter the cities, and then we will have hell on earth, and we will probably see 100,000, 200,000 Russian dead and wounded trying to push into Myrnorod and Pokrovsk. And this is where Ukraine can break the Russian army. That's it. That's all I have for you this time around. I hope you found it interesting. I hope I'll see you in the next one. And, well, I guess we might have coined a new word for Russian military tactics and strategies. Schneckenkrieg. It's not fast paced at all, but it's slow, hard work, and you lose almost all your own troops doing it. It's kind of like if you take a Pyrrhic victory and put it into turn a Pyrrhic victory into a Pyrrhic campaign, more or less, I guess. So yeah. Anyway, I hope I'll see you in the next one. As always, go på marsch, Ukraine, and give them hell.